It's July 1st, 2018. You're listening to Fancy Ramen. I'm Neil.
I'm Cookie.
And I'm Scott.
And I just had to double check and make sure I was recording. I am indeed recording. How's everyone doing today?
Doing really good. It's great to see your faces.
Like live, too.
Yeah, I know. This is responsive enough that I can stop interrupting and I can feel more engaged in the conversation. And you guys can catch me drifting away, reading stuff every once in a while.
So I have a quick question. Is everyone in like the same orientation? Is it like Neil to the left, Scott in the middle, and me on the right?
Well, it is Neil on my left, you in the middle, myself to the right. So I'm going to guess, Neil, I'm going to guess yours. Neil has you on the left, Cookie. No, Neil has me on the left and you in the middle and me on the right, and himself on the right.
Yep.
Okay.
Did it just zoom in automatically when you smiled?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's freaking me out.
That's interesting. Kind of weird. Yeah, so what have you guys been up to this week?
Well, I'm finally in the new place and all established and set up. You can see that I don't have the blindingly bright office background anymore. I can control my natural lighting a little bit better. You can also probably see my very ugly floral couch that my girlfriend adores. And
Ooh, I got a floral couch for you then. A floral chair for you.
Oh, don't offer it because Sierra will take it. She'll take it and she'll enjoy it for sure.
They are comfy. Well,
they are.
comfy.
Actually, that couch is super comfy. It just looks like Thanksgiving vomited all over it. If you zoom in, like you can see cornucopias and everything coming out of it.
It's too bad your camera doesn't seem to have that feature.
A mind of its own. I don't even know what's going on. It's just like, hey.
My camera's a shitty little Microsoft camera, so I don't expect too much from it.
How much did it cost you? Free?
It was cheap. It was like $20 to $30 tops.
You know, the seat.
And it won't track me around my room like Cookie.
I don't understand because I've got the same camera as Cookie does here.
Do you have the Logitech software installed?
C920? No, I just plugged it in and it did whatever it had to do to make it work. I made sure it worked in OBS, and here we are.
You gotta download more than those drivers to get all the fun functions.
Or you don't download them, and the camera works better.
I don't know. Cookie seems like it's more fun.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah, you asked what we've been up to this week.
Yeah, I already sort of answered. I mean, outside of video games, moving is all I've done. And read a book.
I can dig it. So I explored the glorious life of DMing for the first time. That dramatic, like, wide shot, apparently. And gotta tell you, Scott, it is not easy. Like, as my players decide to go into town.
At least they decide to go into town.
As my players decide to go into town, I'm like, okay, I've got like 6 different encounters ready for like if they talk to these people.
Yeah.
And then they were like, so what do we notice? Well, it's a 2-street town. You're pretty much looking straight ahead downtown. The only people on the street are these 2 little kids playing hopscotch and singing a nursery rhyme. And then I forgot what the nursery rhyme was, and I couldn't find it in the book anywhere.
So you had to make one up?
I knew the gist of the nursery rhyme, so I kind of just went with it. And then they were just like, they were going to places I hadn't read about yet, so it's just me constantly flipping between chapters 2 and 6. God damn it.
For anyone just listening to the audio, Cookie's webcam is going crazy. So, all right, I think I have a theory. Maybe these webcams were not designed for people with darker complexions.
Racist?
Oh no.
So it's like maybe there's a white person back here.
No, I was just thinking that like, all right, no, okay, maybe not, because I just noticed that when the light is shining directly on you, it seems to focus more on you, and when you start to turn your head down, look down for a second. No,
No, I don't think it's that. But
Here, I'll whitewash myself a little more. Hi guys,
I don't know.
It's me,
I don't
Scott,
know what
in
it could be.
in the old office.
that is that's not a bad guess though. I mean, it's just looking like the evidence is not stacking up.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I think it just likes to pan for dramatic effect.
I wish it would stop panning on my tits. But yeah, so no, I DM'd a session we were down our healer, but they kind of steamrolled through their one encounter that they had and talked to a bunch of people.
Against the kids playing hopscotch?
No, it was actually a zombie.
Oh, okay.
It was one of those, I read a funny thing where it was like, hey, if somebody wants to like do some kind of check, you give them a weird check to do. And they found this dead body in this cave, and next thing you know, I was like, one of my characters, his name is Rao, because he's a cat person. He goes to loot the body, and I was like, sweet, you go to loot the body, roll a dexterity saving throw. He crit 20s, and I was like,
oh,
well,
that's good.
Well, that didn't work, so roll initiative. We're in combat. And they wholeheartedly demolished this fucking zombie.
Well, if it's just one against, I don't know, your party of 4 or 5, right?
It was 3. It was 3 last night.
Oh, okay. So it could have gone either way.
Nah, I roll pretty shit. Oh, I did 3D print a dice tower the other day, though.
That sounds pretty cool.
I'm excited about
A
that.
dice tower is just a thing that you roll or put the dice into to store them, right?
No, so you actually drop the dice at the top of this tower, and it's got like a little spiral staircase going down through it.
And they tumble down it.
And then it tumbles down it and dispenses in a little tray to tell you what you've rolled. So that way I didn't have to, because I had like 17 sheets and things around me. I didn't want to bother with like throwing dice all over the place.
Have you tried
A champagne
like
tower?
calculating the number of the likelihood to get a specific number as long as you make sure to always put the dice in the tower the same way?
No, because that sounds like math and a lot more math.
It's just that if the tower, the dice tower, is designed in a way that the dice are going to travel like a similar pattern each time, don't you think that specific results would become more likely? And so as a DM, you could start to fix things in your favor, whether you want to screw people over or not. So you could determine that like if I show the 3 die with ones facing up, they're more likely to get higher numbers or something like that.
Is everybody like physically in the space? It's not on. You guys aren't doing it through like Discord like we do, right?
Everyone's physically in the space, and
Okay,
I also,
so you can't just lie about the numbers.
Well, I do have a DM screen up,
Yeah, so you can still lie about the numbers.
so I can still lie about the numbers, but I'm not going to fudge my rolls yet.
I don't know.
No.
Sometimes you got to keep somebody alive.
Nah, I just told them worst case scenario, TPK. But yeah, been prepping for Dungeons and Dragons this week, and my boss bought me drinks on Friday. My boss's boss's boss bought me drinks on Friday.
That's
Ooh,
usually a good sign.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is pretty good.
And then I met up with him at the Gay Pride Parade the next day.
Does he know you're married?
Oh yeah, he's met my wife on several occasions. And I met his wife yesterday.
So you
Yeah,
both have
yesterday.
beards, in other words.
No, he's very clean shaven. Oh, and
Sorry,
I'm doing something
sorry.
with my hair now as well. It's all twistified.
Is it?
Yeah.
Camera
If-
won't zoom. Why doesn't it want to look at your hair? Oh well.
Yep. Anyway. Okay, there we go. But yeah, no, I'm doing something with my hair because when we were at one of our parties that we went to, someone took a picture of me. Shut up. And I looked really generic. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to fix that. But yeah,
You didn't want to look like a Getty Images stock photo.
pretty much. I
It's
really need
fun.
to adjust some stuff.
Yeah, this is going to be a blast for our video watchers and just very confusing for our audio listeners.
Yeah, the audio of Cookie adjusting his camera and now microphone may
Not dynamic
translate well.
What have you been up to, Neil?
Work, and a little more work on top of it. Nah, same old. Which means that this would be a good time to transition to the games we've been playing because I've gotten to play a few that I've picked up from the Steam sale. Ni no Kuni 2 is probably the most interesting one I've been playing, and I haven't gotten too far, but I'm glad you gave it your vote of confidence because that game's been really enjoyable so far.
It is really good, pretty much to the end.
There is maybe one gripe I have with the game, and it's the game's feel, or like the game feels like it has to justify certain things, like
Genocide,
yes, like genocide and racism, and no.
the expansion of white power.
It wants to justify things like fast travel, and it's like, as a person that plays a lot of games, and a lot of games that have really stupid systems, I don't always feel a need for a game to justify a gamey system like that.
You're talking
So-
about tripdoors, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the opening cutscene, or like the opening bit of the game, without going into the, spoilers or details or anything, is basically you have to escape a castle. And once you escape the castle shortly after, you find a tripdoor, which allows you to essentially mark a place in the world, and you can then fast travel to any other point in time. And Roland, the kind of main character, but not really main character, it seems like, says, well, couldn't we have just used the tripdoor to get out of the castle originally? And it's like, well, yes, but you have to visit the tripdoor first. And since I hadn't visited the tripdoor, even though I have the magic to use the tripdoors, I wouldn't have been able to. So like by actually identifying it through the plot or narrative, like I get wanting to justify it, but at the same time, it makes me beg the question, if you have a very important person who could be a target for these things, don't you think
Why
you want to
haven't you
have them
visited the
go and
tripdoor?
find
Yeah.
some tripdoors?
Why don't we have a safe room tripdoor already? Yeah.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
But like, how many people can use tripdoors? Like, the entire idea of teleportation too in these types of games are always going to make me feel somewhat apprehensive moving forward through different storylines, or like through the storylines. Like if you have to get to point A to point B or something really fast, and it's like time is like the amount of time you spend endangers people, etc., etc. Like why didn't we just teach these people that we need to get to a safe place the tripdoor spell? Can not everyone use magic? It seems like a lot of people can use magic. But I mean, ignoring like those small little gripes I have, it's been super enjoyable. It's given me like that sense of grand adventure that I've been kind of missing from a lot of games. And to top it all off, the added difficulty by playing in hard mode actually makes me feel like each battle, or not each battle, but a few battles here and there are actually challenging. And if I don't pay attention, I'm going to get killed, like in a sort of Dark Souls-esque way. In fact, like the Bloodborne strategy of rolling or dodging towards enemies as opposed to the sides and stuff, or backwards.
Still totally works.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, say that again?
It totally works in this game.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you still get iframes, and you can even... I don't know if you've gotten to the point where you can actually tweak some of your stats, essentially, but you have a way that you can tweak your number of iframes available, and so
I
think for the hard
actually
mode,
I
it's worth it.
unlocked that and I quickly maximized the dodge or the
Yeah.
iframes all the way up. So
I think that's the most valuable thing.
like there's damage and some other things that you can upgrade instead. But when I saw
Yeah.
the invincibility frames upgrade, I immediately put every point I had into that. So I think that just about does it for me, though. That's really the only thing of note I wanted to discuss this week.
Well, I decided to turn Subnautica on. And boy, howdy, let me tell you, you definitely need to do some Googling before you attempt to play that in VR.
No. Oh, and with that aspect in.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
So if you just go into so whenever you play with the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive, you've got like this home hub worlds. You turn on the Vive, you put it on, you go into the hub world, you pick the game you want to play. Subnautica clearly states the controllers that you're using aren't compatible with this game. So the motion controls. And I'm like, okay, I've got this Xbox controller here that's plugged in. That should be compatible. Cool. So you jump in, and nothing works. So what you have to do, you have to plug in the Xbox controller, and instead of launching Subnautica from the HTC Vive itself, you have to right-click it. You have to right-click on it from Steam, and then launch it in VR. And then you put the helmet on. The VR helmet will be like, hey, this has a VR mode. Do you sure you want to play this in not VR? Then you have to click yes. You want to play this in not VR. And then it still launches properly. It's weird. But then my audio wasn't working properly, so I couldn't hear anything. And yeah, that was about it. So stuff crashed. I went swimming. All of a sudden, there was radiation all around me. I turn around, there's this big fucking thing with moths and shit. It looks kind of like that, I guess.
What is your camera doing?
I don't know. But yeah,
It's
big
gone
fucking
rogue.
thing. Pretty much. Big fucking thing with moths coming at me, and I was like, oh, well, this is
Mandibles?
uncomfortable. Yeah, mandibles.
Gotcha.
It looked like a Gyarados with more mandibles. But yeah,
like a centipede mandibles?
yeah, like that.
Okay.
Think Gyarados mixed with the Predator.
Oh, okay. So it had
Kinda
four
like
of
that.
them? Had like two on each side?
Yes, it did. But besides that, I also decided to play. Speaking of Dark Souls and putting all your things in one stat, I decided to play. I got Conan Exiles, the MMO, and let me tell you, encumbrance, because you need to build houses, which require you to collect stone, which are heavy. Encumbrance.
You mean you haven't started, because Conan Exiles, you haven't started your slave labor force yet?
Nope, have not started a slave labor force. I didn't know you could.
You
But,
can.
Nice.
That
So
is- Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I've played it twice. I started my own game on a PvP server, which has like a really cool thing. The server that I was on, you could only raid people's houses between like a 2-hour window on that server's time. So it was like between like 6 and 8 p.m. on that server's time is when you have to worry about defending your shit. Then the second time I played, I was actually playing with my brother. He was the reason I got the game. And he just put us in like a single player co-op story mode where you can just turn everything to God mode, where you naturally gain XP over time by just living in the worlds.
Yeah.
We're just standing still for 5 minutes, got us to level 7.
Yeah, I remember hearing a friend start playing that game. We were on Discord, and within 30 minutes, he was like naming levels that I thought you wouldn't reach in a normal game until like hours of gameplay. Just
Pretty
like, oh,
much.
now I'm at 16. Now I'm at 20. I'm just like, how fast do you level in this game?
Super fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, and everything was pretty much dying to one hit except for raid bosses, so we took out this giant snake and set up a lovely home, and then we started building altars to different gods.
Yeah, you get to summon like you choose your like deity or pantheon, right, at the beginning of the game.
Yep, mine's oh
Squid
god, what's
god.
the
Squid
what's the
god.
frost giant? No, the frost
Ah.
giant.
I don't know.
Ymir?
That's
Mjolnir?
probably.
Yeah, I think it's Ymir. Either way. God, what is up with... Yes, it's a vacuum cleaner. It is a vacuum cleaner. It's like, oh, okay. And for those just listening to the audio version of the podcast, my camera keeps zooming out, and then
Zooming in on the vacuum.
I'll move a little bit, and it'll zoom in on the vacuum cleaner behind me. It's like, okay.
You can see on Neil's face how much he regrets not installing this software.
But yeah, that's kind of... Oh, and the other thing I've been playing is Mario Tennis Aces. I've been playing it online tournaments without any of the power-ups. Takes it completely back to bare bones, and let me tell you, these matches are super fucking stressful. It is just the worst being a normal human being in that world. I learned how to do like the random dive. So you know when a tennis player like misses a lob and he like runs and he has to like hit it behind him but still make it over the court?
The tweener.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
happens.
that's in between the legs, but
I think Waluigi actually does the tweener, but a lot of the shorter
That's
characters
great.
just like hit it above their head.
yeah.
But yeah, no, that happens. That happens a lot in that mode.
I bet lobs and then the drop shots all of a sudden become like they're the ultimate strategy once you get a rally going to like try and get somebody on a shot.
You put me on a clay court, yes. Drop shot is king.
Absolutely.
It's just
I
like,
also love how much they've gone back to the like every court has an effect on the actual ball speed or bounce. Like I think that is one of the things that I enjoyed a lot about a game that otherwise with the multiplayer like stage selection normally doesn't matter in those types of games.
And now it does. Shark vacuum. I wonder if it's really the shark vacuum or if it's confusing the back of my black chair as my face. Because we've got the same lighting pattern going on. Okay. Anyway. What you been playing, Scott?
I've been playing a little indie game called Crypt of the Necro Dancer, which is a roguelike, I guess, rhythm RPG that you travel through these underground tombs. I think there are 5 stages in all, and you hop to the beat of whatever like song is playing while you explore the dungeon. So the attacking is all automatic, and it's very fast paced because you're essentially, if you miss a beat, you can get penalized on streaks, and enemies will still take their turns to move. And then you also are just trying to navigate it before the song is over, because once the song ends, which there's a short indicator of when you have like maybe 30 seconds left, a trap door opens up beneath you and you fall into the next level. So you have a limited amount of time in each room. And each floor has like a characteristic to it. Like there's a shop somewhere in the floor that has a singing merchant who goes into like this operatic kind of high vocalization when you start to approach him. So like you can navigate somewhat on sound of his voice in the same way that like the map maker in Hollow Knight, you can hear him scrawling from like 1 or 2 screens away. So it's a way for the developers to like incentivize you to explore in a certain direction, but there may be further danger or obstacles that you have to deal with in order to chase that incentive. It is I'm also playing what I think is called the Amplified Edition, and I actually don't know what the major differences are, besides that there seems to be a lot more musical tracks available to it. And there's a lot of characters to the game. So you have a base state character that essentially follows all the rules of the game, but you have other characters like an easy mode bard that can essentially skip the rhythm and is able to move. Well, there's no music playing, which doesn't make sense for the bard necessarily, but you can essentially move through the dungeon, and every move you make, your opponents make a move in conjunction with that. It's really weird. As you progress through it, you pick up items which are obviously lost by the end of that life, but you slowly, like in a lot of other roguelike games, start to build up a form of currency and diamonds that you can use. You can only use them in the round that you got them to unlock different characters that you either rescue in the dungeon for items or other benefits that they allow. So like I unlocked Merlin, and Merlin lets me then spend diamonds to get different spells or spell pickups, while the Dungeon Master that I opened up, or actually I think the Dungeon Master is always in the game, gives me different like permanent effects or bonuses. And then there's a blacksmith that I saved that lets me potentially pick up better weapons. So it's this nice kind of curve as you unlock more things and get further into the tomb. You have the tools to go further and further. But what I think is really entertaining about this game, not only is the like base exploration and the shark vacuum zooms, it's also the boss fights in this game are really cool, because it's essentially like playing on an isolated little chessboard at that point. The bosses all have patterns that can be very overwhelming, but once you identify what that pattern is, there's only a certain amount of randomness that you can be like punished with. Otherwise, following the boss's mechanics and patterns makes for like a very exciting and rewarding like late game for once you've built up enough experience to actually understand the patterns of each enemy. Very Dark Souls-like in the sense that if you don't know how to approach the enemy you're fighting, you can very quickly get kind of steamrolled.
So, is it a rhythm game or is it a dungeon crawler?
It's
If
both.
if you don't match the rhythm, then you cannot succeed at the dungeon crawler. So it's like a dungeon crawler that is forcing you to be very quick about all of your thinking and timing. Like, if I want to read an item description, I can't stand still long enough to read it, so I'm hopping back and forth in spots to like read it when the text blinks up every time I hop back into the next spot. And the rhythm that I've been, like the time signature, who knows what that is, but the usual tempo is like dot, 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 dot. So you have to make a new decision essentially every like half second, which really like amplifies the pace and really helps like push you to make as many actions as possible in the dungeon before your turn is up. It's really good. Like I'm trying to think how many hours I've put into it. I put in probably 4 or 5 hours when I first bought it, and I meant to buy it, play 30 minutes, and then go. I bought it before I moved, so buy it and then start, packing and everything. But I got really invested, and I ended up spending like 4 or 5 hours the very first time I played it. So it's very addictive gameplay too. It's one of those where you can feel yourself really accelerating up the learning curve very quickly at the start, which is also a very like rewarding mechanic, I think.
I can dig it. I'm watching gameplay of it right now, and I kind of want this game, especially since it's actually co-op.
So I also just saw that it is available on the Switch as well, which I think it would be a perfect game for that. I bought it on the Steam sale for I don't know how much. It was only a couple bucks, like $3 or $4. So,
Ooh, that might be actually more worth it.
As opposed to 15 on the Switch, but I would play it
Oh.
all the time on the Switch otherwise.
15 on Switch isn't bad.
Yeah, and the portability aspect of it. Like the games can be really short, so it would work for like playing on a lunch break or waiting somewhere.
Yeah, I like this. I'm proud of you.
Neil, what about you? You're very musically inclined.
Yeah, I've played a little bit of it.
Oh, okay.
Like roguelites, I guess I should say, are just not like my favorite type of game. So
You don't
I
like losing?
it's not that so much. It's just that like that type of format seldom has the ability to give like a rich narrative, and I play games with a lot more story elements that like more games with story elements and narratives than I do games without them. Although not exclusively, because I forgot to mention I have been playing a lot of League of Legends since Earth is back again.
That's right. I haven't played Earth yet, but I played a game or two the other day. That was a lot of fun. Actually, it was just last night. So we might have to play some more.
Yeah, there's like a part of me that wonders why I keep playing League of Legends as like that fallback game. But
You play League of Legends during Earth the most, though, I think.
yeah,
which
definitely
is similar for
because
my behavior.
it's just the fact that like when every cooldown has been greatly reduced and these champions have like the ability to spam, like yes, the game's completely unbalanced and unfair, but you can't get that experience from any other game mode.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely a much funner game for Earth than anything else.
which like says something to me because from what I've always heard, Dota is the exact opposite. It's a game with like longer cooldowns, and it becomes like you have to stress the idea of like saving your ultimate and saving your abilities for specific uses and so forth. And it's like, I guess you could say this is like the most mindless you can have a MOBA, where you can just hit any skill shot, any button at any, or attempt any skill shot at any time. And the only penalty is that you couldn't use another skill at that exact same moment, basically.
Yeah. I
So-
love the instant gratification nature of it. Like, it's very satisfying in general. There's less, what would it be? There'd be less strategy ultimately and more like tactical response, which I really like games that are more tactic heavy than strategy.
So, I was going to say, I had been playing one other game, and that is Final Fantasy 15. And I only bring this up. Wait, why do I only bring this up now?
I don't know. Why?
Yeah, why do you bring this up?
Why do you only bring this up?
It's because I heard something really interesting just as a side note before we talk about our topic for the week. What game? What game is it?
I didn't get to tell you I beat the Old Hunters DLC in Bloodborne.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I beat the Old Hunters DLC in Bloodborne.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh my gosh. That's a great DLC. That's maybe one of my favorite From Software DLCs I've played. And it adds, like, I know you're very into the story and narratives of games, Neil, because you just said so recently, but also I know you're like more general taste. If you're looking for a lot of answers to the like obviously enigmatic storyline of Bloodborne or most other From Software games, I think there's actually a really satisfying amount of information that you learn in this single like one-off expansion. It's very interesting. There are a lot of secrets get revealed, a lot of things that you don't even, I don't know. There are answers to questions that you may not have not even asked, which I think is really satisfying for that. But also the trick weapons that they introduce are all really pretty wonderful and mechanically diverse from the trick weapons that existed in the original Bloodborne. I think that in general, if I got a random option of a weapon from Bloodborne Vanilla and the Old Hunters DLC, I would say random option from Old Hunters every single time, because there are only a couple of really interesting or unique weapons in the vanilla game that I think are really worth like investing time into. The boss fights are all phenomenal. They're all spectacular boss fights. There's not a single one that feels incredibly unfair, but they're all very punishing and difficult and require not only a high level, but very high level gameplay, especially in the type of gameplay that Bloodborne has made a lot of boss fights satisfying, which is the one-on-one with a humanoid opponent that is more or less within your size. There are a lot more like hunter style brawls than there are massive abominations that you need to slash at their legs. And so I think they really did a good job with creating a diverse array of hunter fights while keeping it all relevant to the storyline.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there like this is maybe a crazy thing to say, but I feel like just based on the natural flow of gameplay in the original or vanilla game, the hardest fight in that entire game is the 3 random hunters in oh god.
Oh yeah, in Yargul.
Is that where it is? Like where you are skirting around the outside of a building, you go in from a balcony, and you, I think, have to fight one guy with a cannon,
one guy with a cannon and the Tonitrus, one gal with the threaded cane.
It's
Cookie's
the remote.
This time. One gal with the threaded cane, and then someone with, I think, the beast claws.
Oh yeah, I think that's right.
And that's the type of fight where I normally go, like that fight in particular is the type of fight that I go in and say, well, if I just spam everything on one of them and kill them, then I only have a 1-on-2 fight next time, and I can kill another one of them, and then I'll have a 1-on-1 fight the third time. Yeah, that actually, there's another fight or two that gets set up in which you think you have a 1-on-1 fair fight with a hunter, and then a second one slinks out of the shadows and surprises you. So they do a really good job of making you also have a lot of fights in which priority between melee and ranged attackers of equal strength have to be balanced in a confined or like somewhat more difficult arena than just like an open space, like some of the larger bosses merit.
Do you think that like there is a good, like a specific point in time that you should play the old Hunters DLC in terms of like a playthrough?
Pretty much after the majority of the original campaign in Bloodborne. A lot of the enemies are very difficult. The recommended soul level, I'd say, is like closer towards the hundreds than it is towards the 50s or below.
So we're talking like once the thing happens to the hunter's dream, the hut in the hunter's dream, that's when you're about ready?
That's when I felt ready, yeah.
Okay.
The problem is that there's a lot of really cool and awesome weapons that you can take advantage of. But in order to get to a lot of them, you have to progress a very far distance through the old Hunters DLC. But there are some enemies that soak some pretty serious damage. Like I was close to full build, and in the last area and the second to last area, I was just doing enough damage to, kill common enemies with 3 to 4 to 5 strikes, depending on what I was using.
There's maybe 2 places in the base game that punishes you for playing Fashion Souls or Fashionborn. Specifically,
anywhere with Frenzy.
Yes, like Frenzy, and then there's a place I think where like having poison resist. I don't remember, but I feel like I switched out for poison resist or something else at one point.
There's an underground cave that makes poison resist really necessary, I know, with a lot of church giants and leeches.
How's the DLC as a whole? Will I be like penalized for wearing my crow's outfit with my Yarnum Hunter hat?
I don't know. I would say that there's going to be some armor offered to you that'll be very useful for specific boss fights. Like, one thing I did enjoy about it that Dark Souls and Bloodborne sometimes do is they'll hand you an item or an armor set right before you're going to need it. And you go, oh, this is kind of cool, but these stats seem really specialized. And then you put it on when you realize that the boss you're about to fight happens to be something that you want those defensive stats for.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh man, which by the way, the first boss fight in that game is excellent. It is also how you get the I'm going to spoil a weapon for you, but it's how you get the holy moonlight sword, which makes an appearance in each From Software game.
Oh, so it's most likely like, I don't think it's that big of a spoiler if it's the first boss, but I'm assuming you're fighting Ludwig.
Yeah, it is Ludwig, the Holy Blade. Man, that was a great fight. That was one that Sierra watched me die over and over and over again against. That's the other thing, is actually in the vanilla Bloodborne, once I got my skills up to snuff, there were quite a few boss fights that I went into once,
Yep.
and finished them off. And
To the point now where like it's hard to even remember some of the names because you only fought them once.
Yeah, because you fly through them. I used to have a huge problem with the 3 like wraiths in the swamp right before you go to Bergenworth.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I walked right through them the last time I played, or this time that I played, and so there's definitely some builds that make later bosses end up being very lacking in challenge in the game. I think I told you guys that I just slapped Abritus with electric damage and never got hit once. Like, I did not have that kind of luxury playing the Old Hunters DLC. I threw myself against every boss at least like 10 times. And that actually, like, it makes it so much more satisfying. It's so much more of a white-knuckled event when you get to the next, like, transformation in a fight, or you finally finish that health bar, that I just didn't experience very much in the vanilla game, even against Gehrman and the Moon Presence. Like, it only took a couple of tries against them. Which, by the way, you can die to Gehrman, and you still get a chance to challenge him again, because you have to accept your death, essentially.
That's what I thought, yeah.
It was something I was worried about, because essentially I was very stressed that I was only going to get one shot, and got him down to about a third of his health. And then he has a ranged attack in which he pretty much hits you with like whirlwinds that appear from nowhere. And I got cheesed really hard at that point. But yeah, the Old Hunters DLC.
You say you got cheese, but that part's not bad if you're just staying within that perfect middle range.
I had to heal. I had to heal,
man,
Neil.
No. Gurman did nothing wrong. You have to treat that like a PvP encounter. If you're healing, you're garbage.
Okay.
Actually, I don't even know if that's true for Bloodborne PvP. That used to be a topic of discussion, but I think the PvP community for Bloodborne ultimately went with healing. I could be wrong.
It makes sense for me, but I remember the Dark Souls community being very anti-Estus Flask for a while. And that's why you kill somebody and then you chug your Sunny D afterward, just for bad manners. But that's it. I just wanted to talk about how great the Old Hunters DLC was, and how I think it is an essential component to Bloodborne as a whole. If you're going to play the game, you should play it with the DLC. There are way too many things that it offers in as far as storyline and gameplay that I think it would be really disappointing to have the game without it at this point.
I will definitely revisit it again, or revisit it rather, for the first time. I think I'm gonna have to beat God Eater 1 and 2 and Ni no Kuni first, because even just between those two action games, I'm already having this issue where the control schemes are so different from each other. I'm finding myself struggling to get back into the groove with one game after I've played the other.
I totally get that.
To throw Bloodborne, which is going to be a third control scheme, and they're all very different from each other, I would think I would go crazy trying to toggle or juggle those games.
It's like when your friends invite you to play Call of Duty and you just finish playing Halo, so you just get
Yeah.
stomped because you're doing everything differently.
So, Neil, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been playing Final Fantasy 15?
Yes, but why? We're
'cause
segueing back to... Yeah,
Yes.
That's right. My bad. All right, I remember now. I bring this up because I was reminded that how fucking big is that install? It's 60 gigs.
Yeah.
It's a lot of memory. But guess what's going to be even more than that? Shenmue 3.
Why?
Something tells me it's going to be because they are not optimizing their code, and they aren't compressing their resources that well. But
They're
Nice.
compressing
just
their
heard
facial
that.
models, that's for sure.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, what the fuck? Why is it that big? Like we've seen what it looks like, and I don't know. At the same time, to bring up Ni no Kuni 2 again, and Breath of the Wild, which I'm assuming is also a pretty sizable game. Actually, is it that sizable if you have to download it?
What game?
Breath of the Wild?
It's just too big for a Switch without a memory card.
Okay, so that's only 13.4 gigs. I guess like the realization was occurring to me that like maybe it's all about like the environment, and maybe those assets are what takes up that space. Wow, that's really impressive. If we were talking about like enjoyment of a game to size of storage space required, I think that would be pretty high on my list regarding Breath of the Wild and current gen. I could have used that into a segue to a different topic.
But you
this,
didn't.
Yeah,
So-
but this week, I wanted to tie in some news. So a couple weeks ago, Trans Gaming, which is a software or video game development company, they also...
See, when I first read Trans Gaming and I just got back from the Gay Pride Parade, my thought was, Trans Gaming closed its doors? To who? Why are they not accepting people?
So basically, and I guess it's not technically Trans Gaming itself closing down, but they're closing down a separate entity, like a Mac Gaming portion
Separate
of
but
their
equal.
company.
Told you, man, it
why
loves
is
my
your
boobs.
camera? Yeah, okay. So as a result, basically, people that had bought some of their games and what Trans Gaming did basically was they would do a lot of Mac ports. So people that bought games like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance on the Mac basically can't play the game anymore because its DRM protection involved being connected to the internet to connect to the server. Now that the server has been shut down, the company no longer exists, and no one's going to create a patch to basically turn off or like deactivate the DRM portion of the game. Like, they're left unable to play their game. Now, since then, people through unofficial means or cracks have basically been able to get around the DRM protection of this game. But this was just yet another thing that's happened in this past year that has like made me realize that like gaming as a whole is starting to go more towards streaming or cloud-based settings.
Service model versus product.
Exactly. Like, for instance, Xbox has announced that their Game Pass is going to incorporate cloud-based or streaming games, just like PlayStation Now has from the past couple of years, and your camera, again, is being lewd. And of everyone, or like, if that wasn't everyone already, so to speak, Nintendo...
That made it worse. I'm going to go over here now.
Nintendo has even gone in with their cloud-based version of Phantasy Star Online 2. And man, what is your camera doing? They've done
I'll be right
Phantasy
back.
Star 2, and they've also done Resident Evil 7 cloud version. So like it seems like it's an inevitability at this point that we are going to at some point in time rely on mostly cloud. You brought a blanket to cover yourself up. That's fucking great. My question though is that like, is this really all that good for the consumer? Is it good for people that want to play games, people that want to own games?
In the
It
short run,
depends.
in the short run, yes. In the long run, no. Sorry, I got tired of the camera ogling my titties.
Yeah, I understand that. I agree with Cookie 100%. Short term, people are probably going to think this is great. Long term, we run into the same issue that Netflix has had, in which, I want to watch this show, but all of a sudden it's no longer available by them because a developer decides to pull a game or they don't exist anymore, and somehow there's some sort of legal recourse that prevents it from being sponsored on Xbox One or PlayStation. Like, I worry about this harming the accessibility of games in the way that a digital or like physical copy that you've purchased and therefore reserved for yourself prevents any sort of loss of that. And even digital copies, we can argue, have that flaw or vulnerability in which there's always a chance that someday it won't be offered again. But my physical cartridges of Super Nintendo games, I can play the rest of my life as long as that Nintendo keeps kicking.
Well, and it's even present the possibility now that when I put in my Metal Gear Solid 5 disc, that at some point in time, a
It gets
version
locked
of the
down from
PlayStation
DRM.
firmware will actually no longer be able to play that game. And I bring up Metal Gear Solid 5 specifically because, like, a portion of that game, albeit maybe not one I'm personally interested in, but the online portion involves you accepting a EULA agreement, which more or less stipends that this like Metal Gear Online is a service and not a product that you've purchased. Like, that will be discontinued at some point in time, assumedly. Like, I recognize that games as a whole can be designed to be a service as opposed to a product. Although, I mean, like, if we're getting into the nitty gritty of capitalism, I think it can be both. You know, League of Legends, Dota, CS:GO, these things could eventually someday be no more. Like, the companies could be shut down, and whether or not a fan base or a community would have the know-how or the resources to put up, like, unofficial servers, let's
They
just
do.
assume in
They
most
would.
cases, yeah. Like, Phantasy Star Blue Burst still has fucking fan servers up, so I think there's still Dreamcast servers for Phantasy Star online, in fact. But, like, the game is still very different from what it would be if it were on an official server. Excuse me. So I recognize, like, games as a service existing, but what scares me is the concept of a single-player game like Metal Gear Solid Rising being forced in only one available platform, which would be streaming. And it's also kind of scary too that when Phil Spencer, brought this up with Xbox. I guess I should say too, it's not that their current Game Pass is going to offer streaming, I should say, but that certainly seems to be the plan in his eyes. And he brings that up immediately before talking about, like, a new iteration of Xbox. And I'm starting to wonder if, like, a new Xbox is ultimately, whether it's this one or the next PlayStation, is ultimately going to just be a glorified Steam Link, or like a
Not a Steam Link, the original Xbox One.
what?
The original Xbox One was just DRM only. When they first announced it, they were just going to be like, you have to have an online thing. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, right. I see
yeah.
what you.
Okay.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. No, that was the original Xbox. Was quite literally just a streaming device for your games, so it didn't have to have high computing power.
It is extremely concerning because it's like, not only do we live in a time where not every place in America, let alone the world, I say America because, I mean, like, we are one of the target audiences of these products, right? Necessarily is going to have a reliable enough connection to actually utilize game streaming. But we also have to face a uncertain future where net neutrality no longer exists. So if I need to, be able to pull down full not only like 4K footage, but also like the net code to go between my home and that server at a reasonable enough like latency or response time, I may have to end up buying the specific internet package designed for gamers that, does specifically Xbox or PlayStation Now servers extremely well, because that, again, like, part of net neutrality was basically saying that ISPs could not enforce or restrict access to certain servers or services or throttle certain things.
But once it's out, the favoritism's on, and we have to, in the darkest timeline, like, I have to buy a PlayStation because my internet service provider is only really viable for PlayStation. They don't have the same connection they don't have the same connection to Xbox servers for whatever that future console is that they do to PlayStation. And
They don't believe in PC either.
and
so
they don't host any sort of connection with Nintendo Online services. So
Nintendo has online services.
I know I was gonna say like which no one does, but
Let's look at
it
Steam
absolutely
for a second too.
yeah,
Like
it defines the like scarcity of getting the services that you want that we have completely free and available access to right now.
Like we already know that like cable companies, which are the ones providing us mostly with cable internet and high-speed internet, like already hate people cutting cable, so to speak, or cutting off their TV and phone lines. Like, at what point are they going to, is like big cable going to realize that it's not only just access to the internet that's killing your viewership, but it's also kids that are now adults playing video games and watching video games instead of watching your major market television.
Yeah, well, they're going to want a monopoly on digital entertainment at one point or another. That's the only way.
And so when you look at something like Steam, which is a company that, like, let's be fair, Steam's a great service, but they're also pretty, what's the word
Let's
I'm
be
looking
fair,
for?
Steam is an okay service,
Yes,
given
yes.
every other problematic thing about it.
It's a great marketplace, I guess I should say, and
then-
they are also very good at making sure they get their cut of the money. And I'm not necessarily saying anything like negative about that, but what I do want to point out is if a company like Cox Communications or whatever internet provider is actually prevalent throughout America, I'm not sure if Cox is, if they want to start playing hardball with Steam because there's no net neutrality, the easiest thing they can do is just to start to throttle the connection from their users or the people they provide internet to Steam and the servers that they utilize.
And then all of a sudden you've got...
what?
Oh, go for it.
You too can get the Steam Access bundle from your cable provider for just an extra $39.99. I don't know how likely that is, but like my version of the Darkest Timeline is that you literally have to get specialized versions of an internet plan to be able to game fully in a fully functional setting, and it becomes even more important because in the future everything could be cloud based.
Well, let me tell you what, Neil, Taiwan has your back with the iHotel, so you can actually just check into this hotel to play video games on high-end gaming PCs.
Too bad Taiwan's going to get overtaken by China in 30 years.
Yeah, so, you know.
Wow, some national pride you have, Neil.
I'm
I mean, you're an
representing
American.
my grief over that.
But-
It's just that like we are no longer a stable world anymore.
Wait, we were stable?
To some degree, yeah. We don't have to get into the politics. I
No.
definitely don't want to do that. But I'm just saying that like as the world becomes more and more unstable, like this also directly affects the luxuries that we have, like enjoying video games, enjoying movies, literature, and so forth. And I definitely see a potential issue arising the more and more we get into a services-driven industry compared to being able to go to a shelf and buy a copy of a game. It's like digital downloads is one thing. Like let's say Steam completely dies out, GOG completely gone, and we can no longer download the games that we own.
And we're all out a shitload of money.
So if that were to happen, at the very least, I have 2 PCs and a Mac that are full of old games I used to play. So it's like, yes, I'm out of all the games I bought and never downloaded, but I still have access to those other things. But like in a cloud-based setting, let's say PlayStation Now goes down, I have lost access like to all of the games I may have the license to play or have rental rights or whatever. And I also lose the potential of the games I had access to by having the service as a whole. Like, I don't know. It seems to get back to like the original point, it feels like if there is a gray zone where it like something benefits both the industry or video games as a whole, and the user, it would be a combination of physical cartridges or media along with the option for digital download. So you can accommodate the people that don't give a shit about having physical things around and the people that do. But going cloud-based seems like it doesn't seem to benefit the consumer at all. Like, what is the benefit to me being able to stream something to a device like a Nintendo Switch? The only thing I can think of is if you really have that much issue getting available storage on your Switch.
Or let's put you in like a place that's got good internet, but it costs a lot more money to have something shipped there. Let's put you in Hawaii. At that point, then you've got access to these games the day they come out rather than having to wait the 3 days for 2-day shipping to get to you.
But like digital downloads would still accommodate for you there too. So I don't necessarily see the reason to go cloud-based unless I'm even trying to be devil's advocate. I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe it's cheaper to stream the game than download it. In terms of bandwidth, and it's like I can maybe see the potential to the amount of time I would spend with Final Fantasy 15 if I don't like the game. I mean, it's a different situation if I were a different person. I might only spend an hour with that, and an hour streaming 4K or 1080p probably doesn't take nearly the bandwidth that it would to download the 60 gigs and play it that way for an hour. It seems like a stretch, I think, in just the general case to how is cloud-based gaming good for anyone? Like, especially as memory, whether it's SD cards or SDXC, like memory capabilities or storage, I should say, rather, not memory, is small and becoming more and more affordable. So I don't
we're going to
really
hit
think
that data cap. We're going to hit that memory cap. See? That memory cap.
that broom memory cap in your camera's focus. I don't know. I have troubles finding like a reason that cloud-based gaming is beneficial at all at this point, aside from the niche circumstances in which you don't want to download Phantasy Star Online 2 and you want to be able to play it on the go. But even
sometimes I'm just tired that my PlayStation 4 hard drive's going out. The external hard drive I had plugged into it, like while we were playing a video game. Yeah, like while we were playing something, all of a sudden it just kicked me out of the game and was like, hard drive was unplugged incorrectly. Repair. And this is like the 4th time it did that, so now I just took everything off of it, and I'm down to 1 terabyte of memory now until I get another external hard drive because I'm tired of this. Tired of this damn game.
Tired of these motherfucking snakes on a plane.
I think it's fair to also make the point then that if it's just another option for gaming, that's fine. Like it has its benefits and advantages, but it does not operate effectively as a substitute. And if we look at it as a substitute for essentially eliminating physical copy or downloaded game files, then it's really going to be lackluster and have a lot of disadvantages. But if it is something in parallel, the same way that digital downloads became a parallel option to a physical game copy, then I'm actually not so worried about it. Like I don't think it's such a bad thing. If there are 3 viable options for playing a game, at least in how you go about doing it on a functional scale versus 2, but if it's the only option, I totally understand the complaint and the difficulty.
So how would you feel if you were a Nintendo Switch owner and not a PC, or at least a PC capable of playing the game I'll mention, not an Xbox owner or a PlayStation owner, and you really wanted to play Resident Evil 7? You would have the cloud version, or you could upgrade your PC, basically.
Yeah. And that would suck.
We're definitely not at the point where cloud-based gaming is the only option. It technically is for service-driven games, like multiplayer online games, whether they're MOBAs, MMOs, shooters, etc. But I mean, it's not a problem yet, but I can foresee it becoming a problem, I guess is what I'm saying, especially with the way Phil Spencer is talking about game streaming on the Microsoft and Xbox brand.
Well, Neil, we can always trust industry leaders to do the right things for consumers, can't we?
That's
It's
why they've
hard to
been
say.
appointed. That's why they've been appointed.
It's
Yeah.
really hard to say
For the
because
share-
Microsoft's
I mean,
done a lot of good
consumers.
things, but they're also the guys that, Microsoft and Xbox also were the ones that were trying to prompt online connectivity required 100% of the time. It's exactly like you pointed out, Cookie. I completely forgot about that. But
That was the thing that made everyone go, "Oh, Sony's good." See, Sony, that's the color that it's really going for.
and the inability to sell off your games after you're done.
It said Xbox and Sony.
Yeah, they wanted to kill that gamers market.
Which in their defense might already be dead if you look
It
at
was already
GameStop.
dying.
Yeah. But
Rest in
I
peace, Game Pass. No, Gamers Club for Best Buy Games Club.
I think they still have that.
No, you can't renew it.
Oh,
So
Ouch.
you've either you're already done with it forever, or you've got until I think August. I forget when they actually announced it.
well, the best service is obviously GameFly.
Oh,
This was brought to you by GameFly.
GameFly, when you can't have it any other way.
Wait. I haven't listened to a podcast and had GameFly be the sponsor of it in a long time. Does GameFly exist still?
I think they still exist, but I'm gonna bet at a very limited. Let's just look it up.
I know it was like a year ago. I happened to notice GameFly advertise on 3 or 4 podcasts I listened to, 2 of which were not necessarily video game specific. So they were pushing hard for business,
Yeah.
but they still exist according to their website. Otherwise,
Yeah.
my free trial is of nothing. This episode was really not brought to you by GameFly.
No, not at all. They do not sponsor us.
But for business inquiries or other questions, you can write in. Actually, before I say this, did you guys have any closing thoughts about this topic?
I think we tackled all the necessary legs.
Yep.
Then I'm going to restart my
Cloud
stupid
service
segue.
bad unless cloud service plus digital download plus other copy good.
Physical download.
Yeah.
If you have comments, questions, or concerns, you can write into podcast@fancyramen.com. I had to think about that.
Yeah, we saw the pause. Get him, Cookie.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to leave a subscription on Apple Podcasts and a like and rate us 5 stars. So that way I can start reading off these names of Ben, who said we have weird pacing, but life is fine. Our Becky, who says we exist, and that's great.
What? Are those real?
Technically, those are more word of mouth things, but
Yeah. we have users actually fly out to Omaha to tell Cookie in person how they feel because they have such strong feelings about the podcast.
we exist, and that's great.
So if you don't want your friends to miss out on our camera zooming shenanigans, you should tell them to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or if you just want them to hear our camera zooming shenanigans and leave them even more confused, go ahead and tell them to subscribe to our podcast wherever, podcasts are found. If you're listening to us, you found it and you can recommend that source. It's been a pleasure, guys.
All right, goodbye.
Have a good night. Good week.
Bye.
Whatever.